What up everyone, Clayton here, and today we're back with another Skyrim build. Today's build is called the Acrobat, and it was suggested by Ethan Gallant. The Acrobat is a Nord who likes to move fast as possible on the battlefield and doesn't really want to take very much damage. The reason for this is as a child he was abused quite a bit, and when he takes beatings or is into a fight, he kind of reminds him of that, and he doesn't really like that, so he tries to stay away from it as much as he can. He even suffered abuse as an adult, and because of that he decides to leave Skyrim, and right as he's leaving Skyrim he is in a part of an Imperial ambush, and then he has to go to Helgen, and the whole thing of Dragonborn really starts. He has some other background information here, but it's kind of a little bit difficult to add in with that. He says that this character doesn't decide to side with the Imperial Legion because he kind of gave up on his Nord brethren, and because of all of the abuse from his father, who's a Nord, and none of the other Nords helping him out. So he kind of wants to get, Skyrim for the Empire, even though there's Nords that go for the Empire. It's a little bit confusing here, but this is what he says here. So yeah, he tries to stay away from combat because he doesn't like combat itself. So yeah, let's go ahead and get to the perks real quick. Some of the perks we got is Restoration, Heavy Armor, which is kind of weird, but I'll get to in a little bit, One-Handed, Archery, and Sneak. So Restoration, you'll be using Restoration in one hand, and in the other hand you'll be using a mace. The reason why you'll be using Restoration, like I said earlier, he doesn't really like to take damage, he doesn't really like to take abuse. So whenever he gets hit, he heals himself up, so he's at full health, so he doesn't really have to worry about it anymore, and that's kind of like the reasoning behind why Restoration is so important for this build. So Heavy Armor, the reason why you're doing this is because, like I said, he doesn't like to take hits. And what's the best way to not take hits very hard? Heavy Armor. And no, it doesn't really make sense with the Acrobat, but there is a perk in Heavy Armor called Conditioning, which allows you to run around and the Heavy Armor doesn't weigh anything. So it's really good, and it kind of still fits in with the whole acrobatic feel of running around the battlefield quickly. Like I said earlier, you'll be using one-handed maces, so you want to make sure you get points in the one-handed tree, especially Bone Breaker, which is really good to ignore armor to hit your enemy harder. So you're also going to be using Archery, and you want to make sure you get the Ranger perk because it allows you to move faster with the bow drawn, and it gives more into that acrobatic feel of running around quickly without getting hit. And then of course you have some sneak to be able to use. You can get deadly aim to get your sneak attacks with your bow to do a little bit more damage, and this is really good to avoid combat because, like I said, you don't really want to take combat. Your character hates combat, but as a Dragonborn you kind of have to do what you have to do to be able to stay alive and to save Skyrim. So let's go ahead and talk about the weapons and armor. Like I said a little bit earlier, you'll be using heavy armor, so any real heavy armor of your choice would really work. In this build, Ethan decides to use Daedric armor, which I think is pretty cool and is probably one of the highest armor rating in the game. So I'd recommend using that, unless you want a different type of heavy armor to really roleplay a little bit better. Daedric works fine, it's probably one of the best in the game. Also, a Daedric weapon would be pretty good. I use a Daedric mace to be able to do damage to the enemies, and I think it's pretty good as well, because Daedric, you can't really complain about that. And of course you need a bow still, so make sure to pick up any bow you really want to use. I use a Daedric just to keep it all Daedric, but you can do whatever you want. And then for spells, you really need Grand Healing, which is the expert level healing spell, to make sure you stay alive as quickly as possible, as well as you'll be using this in one hand with the mace in the other. So let's go ahead and talk about gameplay. What you'll be doing. You'll be sneaking around trying to avoid combat, but when you do get into combat, you have 3 shouts that really help you out. You have Become Ethereal, which makes it you are intolerable and you won't be able to take damage, but you also won't be able to do damage, so that's pretty important to use to stop taking damage. You have Whirlwind Sprint to be able to sprint around the field and zoom out of combat or zoom into combat, whatever your needs depend on. And Slow Down Time, this is another way to avoid combat and avoid damage and kind of give that more acrobatic feel where you're dodging all the damage that's coming to you, and then you can go ahead and target people on the weak points. Another spell or shout you might want to use is Elemental Fury with your mace. It allows you to swing faster, and I guess kind of more like acrobatic feel, because I assume acrobats are fast and swinging mace is fast, so makes sense, I guess. But yeah, it's pretty simple to use. You kind of want to take the least amount of damage as you can. And for the stat spread, he has something very interesting for this build, and it is have tons of magicka and stamina, but have pretty low health. And the reason behind that is since you were abused as a child, you kind of have like low health. Like, I guess this is what he's trying to say. So yeah, this way with the high stamina and the high magicka, you can sprint around the battlefield faster, healing yourself up. And if you have respirate, which it allows you to regen your stamina when you heal, you can get tons of stamina to be able to run around the battlefield and give that more acrobatic feel. I think there's one thing I forgot. I thought about the standing stone. I always love the Lord Stone. It gives you more health and magicka. But if you're starting off the game, I'd probably pick up the Warrior Stone. That way you can get your warrior skills up a little bit quicker. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this build. I should leave the comment down in the description below. So if you want to check it out, go ahead and do that. And make sure to give props to the build creator, because without him, there wouldn't be this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys want your own build to be featured on one of my videos, make sure to leave a comment down below. And if you want to check out these two builds right here, make sure to click the annotations, because I'll remember to do it, because for the last 3 weeks I forgot to do that. But yeah, check out those two builds. And this is Clayton, signing out.